Hi, I'm Ellen Francisco. Thanks for coming to my channel. I'm a psychic medium and I work in the energy field, and I love to look at them all and do energetic readings every month to figure out what the energies are and what spirit wants out of us, basically. So for this reading, we're going to be talking about the November 30th partial lunar eclipse, although it's a full moon, in Gemini. So, which is starting a swing of eclipses with the Gemini and Sagittarius polarities in north and south nodes, which is a mode in itself. When you're talking about the nodes of the moon, it's like there's a south node, which represents things that we're trying to get away from in our psyches and in our personalities and in our past mental states. And then there's the north node, which usually represents what we're working towards, the higher ideals, things that we're trying to become and energies that we're trying to work with. So we're launching a whole new eclipse pattern as well. That's going to be a lot of innovation, just whipping around, a lot of inspired thoughts. So what I'm seeing for the energetic read, as far as how this is all beginning, is that a lot of things are ending. And we've got these cycles of completion and things that we'd started long ago that weren't really in our best interest, that didn't really have our spiritual needs or our true emotional needs even in mind, and yet we did them anyway, right? We entrapped ourselves, we got ourselves tied into contracts we really didn't want to have to deliver on, and we went a long time like that. And this whole year has been helping us strip away slowly at all the things that aren't our unique, authentic self, and asking the questions of, where is my happiness coming from if I'm not doing things that are truly me? And is the happiness sustainable, or is it just an illusion as well? So these are the things we've been up against. And of course, we've also been stimulating all of our first chakra, deep wounds, and past life death pictures for sure, as well as past life content that has a lot of emotional weight to it and would stir up emotions of anxiety and fear. So as things have been playing out on the world stage, we've had to adjust to the extra stress of having things more, obviously not be going well, and we've had to kind of parry around our own really deep subconscious desires to clear a lot of this heaviness and settle some scores and even some things out and smooth out relationships, or heal our deepest wounds in a way that will allow us to keep an open mind into what's coming next for us. So there is a lot of hope around the corner. We've had a lot of slow, sluggish energy because so many planets were retrograde, and now as things are going more direct, we're being able to kind of pick up a little bit for lost time. But what I feel people are having issues with right now, or just the extremes of their emotional content, right? And taking it all too personally, although it was at some point very personal. So it would be a really real state. A lot of apathy during this stage as well as just a general restlessness and, tired of the hurry up and wait. Also not really liking to be caged in, right? The sense of us needing more freedoms and more allowances of sorts, as well as just the idea of we all have addictions in one way or another, whether it's to our relationships or substances or liquids or exercise or sleep or whatever our coping mechanism is that kind of pushes us into an extreme, is what we're trying to balance out overall, obviously, right? But these polarities are just so necessary, unfortunately, to help us become more attuned to what is not in flow, right? Like in those extremes, you start to see what isn't working, and you know, apply pressure, and you definitely see where the weaknesses and structures are, and ours is no different. So when it comes to things that you've had to indulge in just to get through the day, or interesting little habits that you've had to pick up or adopt, or you know, little habits that have become addictions, just, you know, you're gonna have to cut yourself a little bit of slack still, and work on the forgiveness and the acceptance part of it, because it's just, I think there's opportunity to get behind it a little bit more, like next month or during the next eclipse. I think this eclipse is going to be better to just, you know, allow this stuff to come up and purge off in any way it needs to, in as healthy a way as possible, so that you can just ride the final storm of this, you know, falling off the cliff, doom and gloom, do or die kind of state of reality. So there's also the sense that we can still be in and out of these varying states of delusion. And what's going to be interesting is that we're suddenly sort of going to have a dose of our own reality and realize that we've pierced through our own delusion, and we're going to have to get a little comfortable with meeting that face to face and finding ways to work with these new parts and new realizations within ourselves. It's really important to be able to you know, not run from yourself at the door, basically. You do have to try to get all these other pieces of ourselves together. There is a point to doing shadow work. It becomes something that helps us humble and I think become less arrogant and less righteous. It helps pummel us to the point into submission spiritually, so that we're willing to be open-minded to try new things. And so there is a lot of, well, because of Gemini, I think of throat chakra too, with the words and ideas, even in, you know, third eye mental state too, coming in a lot through this next phase as well. So there could be the reward for having gone into the emotional depths during these last few eclipses, and having so much water moving through our emotional states and stirring things up. We have now an opportunity to lighten up a little bit and try to reclaim a little bit of joy, if we can figure out how to get beyond our growing depression. Like it's interesting. It's like there's the polarity of, okay, I'm one step away from a deep depression if I'm not already there, and I'm in such an elevated height of new possibilities and openings that, you know, you're overlooking all kinds of things that might be pointing you in different directions. So it's a very confusing time. This is the problem when we go through lots of change, is that so much of what we believed and that we held on, and what worked and constructed in through our chakras and our aura and everywhere that we keep our information, it's all been stirred up so much. It's like this giant dust cloud everywhere, and it's just murky and sloshing around like it's a big washing machine cycle, not really knowing, you know, are we spinning, are we rinsing, are we filling, are we draining, what are we doing? So it's a lot of discomfort, and in a lot of ways, not everything is going to be cleared out. I mean, tons of things are meant to be cleared out during this phase, and we're definitely meant to learn, right, from our mistakes or our own new growths. You know, you just learn from your own expansion too when you widen your perspectives. And keeping an open mind during this period is definitely going to help too, because we are going into a real sort of lofty area. So if you're looking for you know, new ways of doing things, new approaches. This would be a good time to be watching out for them as well. I feel like things are just going to be kind of, you know, landing in like on parachutes, just flying into your life and opening things up nicely for new growth and, you know, new avenues. What else is happening out there? Yeah, so there's also the beginning, right? As things are ending and edging off, new beginnings. So, yeah, really, it's hard to tell whether you're coming or going during cycles like this. So, some of the natural ways of taking care of yourself are going to be important to employ. You know, also, if you've needed more sleep, your subconscious is probably going really deep, 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 deep in and trying to smooth out the last little remainders of what's keeping you from you. Also, as we've cleared some of this stuff out for people who are a little lighter and a little more through it, or they've a little older, so they've been through more and they're able to handle the cycles better, then it might just be a real steady go with the flow and ride with the tide, where you just have an attitude to match the facts and you adjust, and you don't really hold a ton of ego to it or a ton of judgment to how it all needs to look. You just kind of understand you're just living a day-to-day life anyway, and you're going to roll with it regardless. It still is really important to have people who are your kind around you, because these phases are so rife with our own internal self-doubt and criticism, where we really don't have a ton of faith and we can't really see what's coming around the corner. And we have to just plug away like little determined, you know, soldiers to our own cause in order to get through anything with this weight of emotional baggage and suffrage. A lot of suffrage and during this time has also come up, right? Like especially lifetimes where you've suffered, or traumas in your own lifetime where you've really suffered, where your heart went through a beating and you felt like you were dying. You know, not much different from the pain from a heart attack. It would have felt like it had ripped you apart in one way or another. And these are the kinds of wounds that have come up for us to try to mellow out a little bit and soften to and forgive ourselves for. Often our deepest wounds aren't even ours to begin with, because we've taken on something that really wasn't, we've contorted something where we've you know, adopted some kind of warped thinking around something that hurt us or traumatized us, or, you know, helped to fragment a little piece of us off into the corner that became part of our shadow that's now coming up to do some work in the light. Yeah, so give yourself, with all this air, give yourself the space and the headspace to not, as always, jump to conclusions before you're even on the journey. I feel like tons of people have made decisions quietly, internally, over the last several months. A little bit of it has been abiding my time, and when it comes time, I'm going to do it this way. That kind of under planning, back room surmising kind of stuff has gone on under the, you know, wavelength of humanity. And I think that there's going to be a huge forward momentum, just like a catapult forward because of it. All this, it's still an undercurrent, you know, except it's going to take flight, so it's going to move faster with less resistance, I think. And at least that's what it looks like to me when I'm looking into it. And I think as well that there is going to be a bit of a collective sigh of relief, even though we're still dealing with some monstrous problems in the outside world. It's still the just seismic shifting going on internally and with the God force energy within everybody's energetic structure that needs to be reckoned with. So, you know, divine timing being what it is, you know, be prepared to know the signs of where your launch is, right? Like you've been biding your time and trying to sow your seeds and moving forward even though you don't know where you're going, and you're trying to make sense of it all even though you can't see. So when the fog clears and the dust settles, you're going to be glad that you took the little steps towards whatever determination you had that included your wholeness, all of you, not just like parts of you. That's really the new way to be, right? Like you're giving credence to your emotional body, your mental body, your spiritual body. Spirit really does want a place in your body in a conscious way too. So for the people who have been expanding their consciousness in default of not wanting to or hoping it wasn't happening, you know, you're also making adjustments and trying to find balance within, you know, these new skills and talents that are popping in here and there. And it's interesting too, when you go through psychic growth, it all doesn't come in at once and kaboom, you're there. I mean, sometimes it does come in pretty strong, but obviously but a lot of times it comes in and then it goes out, and then you're left to sort of inner sense it and figure it out on your own without a whole lot of support. And then, you know, and then all of a sudden you've got access to it again. So you learn to make good use of the opportunities that the universe gives you, right? Recognize an open door when you see one and jump through it. That's part of what, or just walk through it gracefully, that's part of what the eclipses can do for us too, because they're constantly, you know, eclipsing things out. It's like a window that opens or a door that opens, and things just come in and out, you know, that did belong or don't belong, and they just shift through, you know. So if you've been resisting an obvious change, this is when something would, you know, possibly the universe would do for you what you can't do for yourself and help you make changes. Same with the way you welcome in things. You know, things can come in and drop into your lap suddenly and out of nowhere and make you just feel completely taken back at the immediacy of it all. So another reason to be prepared, right? Like if your long-range goals are the ones Spirit wants you to follow, then you will see a clear path to them. You'll at least see the next steps, and you'll be able to walk towards them. You know, the confidence is going to have to come from training yourself if it doesn't come naturally during this period, and at least affirming some of your good traits and doing positive inventories and, you know, giving yourself some positive feedback when you do things well, because you do need the padding. You need the people, you need some kudos. You need people recognizing that you're trying and you're working towards something, even if you can't see the total end result of it. or whether it's really going to benefit you or not, right? Like there's a reason sometimes we go through these periods where we can't see anything. I call it the blind faith phase. It's like right before you go through it, I find, generally speaking, most people will go through some kind of an awakening where suddenly, you know, their third eye is more developed, and or they've got their crown is more stabilized so they can feel things better in their whole body and understand on a knowing level many things. And often people will shrug that off and try not to connect to it, but when it wants to connect to you, it's coming in. So a lot of us have new tools to work with, and we're just trying to find ways, you know, to replenish ourselves as well, rather than just deplete ourselves. It's really easy to get depleted through this kind of cycle where you're having to rip so much of your core up and out of you. I mean, it's really what you're doing, right? Really, honestly, the entire human race has just been digging so deep into core issues and trying to just smooth out all the stuff that doesn't resonate with our truest natures, and just trying to say sayonara. So this is another thing that's happening during this whole cycle, is it's completions and beginnings and completions and beginnings. You know, often you have to completely say goodbye to something before the next thing comes in. And a lot of people like to piggyback from relationships, right? They like to know they've got something in the pocket before they leave, you know, the pantsuit. So they just need the escape, right? And that's the kind of stuff that happens during eclipses too. There could be sudden jolts, almost like earthquake shifts of emotion, and just complete about faces and the way things go. So, you know, you really can get caught in a whirlwind with eclipses if you're not in the flow of how your internal world is moving you to, right? Like your inner voice, your God voice is definitely in you somewhere, whether you're acknowledging it or not, or depending on how much you acknowledge it. You know, might have an impact on how much you can actually use with it productively, right? So yeah, just definitely keep connected to your inner self, your inner voice. You're really needing to develop it during these next years for sure, if you haven't already started. And yeah, learn to work with it, I guess, because it's going to work you regardless. We often run away from our inner selves, you know, and it's our greatest ally. I mean, you work in tandem, you get a whole lot more done. So why the resistance to a power that's greater than you? I guess when our minds get involved, it's just a little too much. I want, you know, it's a little too much first chakra. Just give me the tangible and fill me, need me, fill me, need me, you know? And our spirit is, you know, way more, it's so much more wider perspective. So yes, with space, you need space. So even though you've had a lot of time alone this year, there still needs to be that space where you can be comfortable enough with yourself during the most uncomfortable moments. That's the true sign of how well you're handling these energies. Is, are you just climbing out of your skin? Are you antsy-pantsy? Are you just you know, unable to focus and bring yourself in? Are you so scattered? The problem too with these periods where you're going into these blind faith zones is that, you know, so spirit opens you up right ahead of time. You've got all this great new content and great awarenesses and open book policy. It seems like, oh my gosh, I can feel everything, I see it all, I know where I'm going. And then so wham, you get into this blind faith stage and you don't see anything, so you have to rely on what you saw before and how it emanates in a physical feeling within your being, so that you can recreate that resonance structure, so you can get yourself through the periods where you don't know where you're going and you have no idea what it all means, and whether it's all so futile that you shouldn't even bother. That's part of the problem with this kind of cycle that we're in right now with the eclipse, is that it's just like, ugh, abject apathy. It's really a heavy, sticky energy, and we are really trying to free ourselves from it. It can create a ton of overwhelm too, where you're just so sensitive to so many things going on at once, and you're taking on so much minutia without having any time to really process it, because you're operating at a lower function, because you're feeling funky and upside down and completely out of balance. So yeah, I mean, it can be a real wreaking havoc kind of a time, where you don't have a ton of self-confidence and you'd rather just curl under a rock and, well, yeah, just stay under there until somebody else has it figured out. But the thing is, you're really meant to be the warrior in your own life, and you're meant to be all that you are and that you can be. So you are going to just kind of keep on trudging through and picking up and moving on and holding the vision of you at your best and worthy, you know, filling your head with statements of worthiness, so that you have constant reminders that you can do and accomplish and move through difficult times with a relative sense of ease when moving with the flow of it. And understanding that some of what you're breaking down are your own limits to your own happiness and your own resistances to these truer parts of yourself. Yeah. So I would affirm all of you. There's a lot that we've learned during this period that we're really not going to understand to what benefit it's going to be for us until well into next year. Yeah, we're going to be able to put some of our new skills to better use next time. Yeah, so it is important to spend some time emanating joy, even if you're not feeling it and you can't quite druther it up. Try to at least plug into something that, you know, some kind of comedy thing that makes you laugh in spite of yourself, or just some kind of schmaltzy something that makes your heart melt, that gives you an opportunity to collapse a little bit into your own emotional muckery. And I mean, don't get lost in it, but access it enough so that you can say a proper goodbye to it. A lot of times the things that we go through emotionally are so tumultuous and heart-wrenching and completely, you know, just an incredible catalyst in our lives, that it takes us years to be able to really understand the impact of that, even though it's had a huge impact, right? And how much we've had to adapt because of these things that have kind of weathered us. So when you kind of, well, when you commit to your own life, you're allowing yourself to grow in spite of it. And, you know, you often get most inspired after some of the worst periods of your life. But we wouldn't believe it when we were going through the worst period, right? Like, we have no room for that in a concept. Like, we're going to be narrow-minded and sure that nothing is ever going to go. So be careful when you're in the doom and gloom to prevent yourself from enforcing the doom and gloom. Like, bad enough that you're sort of in the state, oh, this is all so terrible, you know, but perseverating over it all day and constantly just feeding it into your mind field is going to be completely counterproductive and detrimental. So, you know, really do put some time. Like, if you've got a birthday, do it up, you know, lots of singing, and just, you know, this is a bit of a time for extremes. So if you've been in an extreme down, then try to find the antithesis of that so that you can, you know, kind of counterbalance this movement toward the middle, and this you know, equalizing that you kind of want to get towards, I guess. You know, some of us like the ebbs and flows and highs and lows, but I think for the most part, you know, people are just looking for some kind of, you know, it's really hard to see a sense of purpose right now too, even if you've had a purpose, even when you've had them, even if you are a highly motivated person who has no problem getting things done, no problem getting up in the morning and everything else, you know, you could be just riddled with the weight of the world, you know, and not want to move. So cut yourself some slack and pat yourself on the back for getting this far, and, you know, being able to weather enough of the storm to take some respite in, you know, in your own inner reserves. And oh, you know, anything in bodies of water is really good during these periods too, because it is almost like you're releasing toxins from, you know, everywhere that you've been ever. So whatever you can do to spa it up in your own life, or, you know, drink lots of water. Yeah, like, don't get into depletion cycles. There are a lot of valuable things that will come out of this period of inner reflection, regardless of what you believe, and blessing yourself along the way. Yeah. It's like a state of acquiescence. I think it's kind of coming up. I think we are going to get some respite. I don't think it's going to quite be as hard. This whole part of going into air signs and other eclipses, it's a real potent time to have words with people, you know, so good time to get an idea of, if you don't have a plan yet, really work on where you're coming, where your plan's coming from. It's really true that the average person underestimates their abilities across the board every day of the week. So chances are you're underestimating your abilities right now. And chances are, if you give yourself a little bit more faith, blind faith, give yourself a little bit more credit and allow yourself the right to make mistakes and not have all the answers, then I think you could be quite comfortable during these next several months. And you might not worry as much as the average bear out there. So I'm going to encourage you to do that. And fill your coffers with healing substances if you're trying to break a bad habit, or you're really down on yourself because your habit's becoming an addiction, or you're just really mentally fatigued all around. Try something new. Try a little bit of yoga, or a little bit of meditation, or a little bit of sound frequency healing, or something in the alternative swing that just gives you something, that fills you a little bit, that gives you something to see, or something to feel, or something to think about, some kind of internal affirmation mantra that allows you to reaffirm constantly that you're going to make it, that you're going to do fine, that you're going to build your reserves, you're going to take good care of yourself, you're going to be your best friend, you're going to understand what your limits are, you're going to understand that if you need boundaries, you're going to lovingly embrace them and care for yourself in a way that empowers and ensures your longevity. Like, if you're going to be here, you may as well be the best you can be to yourself, and then everyone else can enjoy the fact that you are a whole person and a centered self. So rather than a self-centered, unwhole person, it's a better alternative. And as much as there is the worry about the outside world and what's going on the world stage, you must also have realism over what is yours to do, and how far reaching is, your affect. And you may make decisions that, surprise you as far as how you participate in just your own sense of free speech and free will and divine options. So awaken to the fact that you are way more than you see in yourself, and you're doing way better in the world than you probably see. Yeah, may the force be with you. May as well keep going forward. Truly, as much as we have to go back into our emotions, and clear things from our past, I don't know. Why do you want to go back there any more than you need to? Keep an open mind. Enjoy the moment. A lot of, what our memories are the ones where we've been most embodied in our moments and been most present because we've had the most amount of fun. So allow yourself definitely to find the fun in your world and put it back in ways that you relish and really enjoy. I'm sure you're going to be good out there. Thanks for stopping by. Subscribe if you'd like. That would be great. And we'll see you next month. Bye for now.